Jesus is risen from the grave. Hallelujah. Jesus is risen from the grave. Jesus is risen from the grave. Jesus is risen from the grave. Can you imagine how Mary Magdalene, that is, felt on the first Easter Sunday, going to the burial tomb of Jesus to complete the burial rites that they had to abandon because the Sabbath came too quickly? And some of the stories have more than one person. Some of them even have three Marys going there together. But when they got there, what did they find? The tomb was empty. There was no body in the tomb. And what shock they must have felt together with their grief. What a terrible thing. And so they ran back to tell the other disciples and apostles, and they came and saw that the tomb was empty, and they went away and left Mary by herself in the garden. And Jesus came to her. And she's weeping. And Jesus said to her, "Why are you weeping?" And she didn't recognize that her eyes were full of tears. She said, "Well, our beloved Master was laid in this tomb, and now the tomb is empty. If you know where they've laid him, tell us so we can reclaim his body." And Jesus says her name, Mary. And immediately she recognized him. She thought he was a gardener or something before, but she recognized him. And how exuberant and joyful she must have felt at that moment, and been shocked and confused. And she gave him a big hug. And he told her to go and tell the others what she'd seen. Jesus was seen by Mary. Jesus was seen by Mary. Jesus was seen by Mary. Well, the others had come running, and they had gone away completely confused, and Mary went and found them and told them what had happened, that she had seen the Lord and they had talked together. And there was a great shock of joy and confusion, and my goodness, I can't even imagine what that would be like. And Peter, who had run to see the empty tomb along with the other disciple, I think he was probably a bit miffed that Jesus chose to appear first to Mary and not to him, because he thought he was the top dog. And so there was maybe some confusion and anger and all kinds of feelings going on in that group. But Peter will soon be smiling. Peter Peter will soon be smiling. Peter will soon be smiling. Hallelujah. Well, in fact, he didn't have to wait too long, because that very evening, the disciples were all gathered in a house, and they had the door locked because they thought, well, maybe the hunt was still on for Jesus' disciples, and they didn't want to be crucified like he was. And all of a sudden, there was Jesus all among them. My goodness. And the scripture we heard this morning that Natalie read said that they were exuberant, filled with joy. And Jesus showed them his wounds, his hands, his feet, his side. And they talked and tried to understand what was going on. And the word spread, but Thomas, who wasn't there that day, he was completely unable to believe that it had happened. He couldn't believe. He needed evidence. He needed to be able to touch the wounds and to breathe the same breath that Jesus did. And so he wouldn't believe. Now, maybe this time you could join me, because the verses just flow from one line, don't they? Thomas will stop his doubting. Thomas will stop his doubting. Thomas will stop his doubting. Hallelujah. Well, the very next week, on the Sunday night, the disciples were gathered again. And there was Jesus among them. And he said, as he had before, "Peace to you." And this time, Thomas was with them. And Thomas touched the wounds in his hands and his feet, and saw the wound in his side. And he was struck, awestruck by this. And he says, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Well, it's all very fine. You believe because you saw, but blessed are those who believe who haven't seen." But Thomas stopped his doubting. Peter was smiling. Mary was